Hello to all. So I'll be continuing with the pathology of breast carcinoma, and in this talk I'll be covering the classification, proliferative and precursor lesions of the carcinoma of breast. So this is a WHO classification of epithelial tumors of the breast, the latest one, and it has various categories. So this is the category that I'll be discussing today. Benign epithelial proliferations and precursors includes usual ductal hyperplasia, then flat epithelial atypia, and ADH, that is atypical ductal hyperplasias. Then there are other categories like adenosis and benign sclerosing lesions like sclerosing adenosis, where there is increased fibrosis as well as proliferation of the ducts. Then apocrine adenoma, microglandular adenosis, radial scar, and complex sclerosing lesion. Here again there is intense fibrosis in the breast, and this lesion mammographically as well as clinically mimics invasive carcinoma breast. Then adenomas, tubular adenoma, lactating adenoma, duct adenoma. Other categories of epithelial, myepithelial tumors, papillary neoplasms. Then non-invasive lobular hyperplasia, again this is important. This is another proliferative precursor lesion, that is atypical lobular hyperplasia. Then ductal carcinoma in situ, again it is very important because it is precursor lesion having maximum risk of progressing to carcinoma breast. So next category, which is important for the undergraduates, is invasive breast carcinoma and its types. So most common is invasive duct carcinoma, not otherwise specified, and then other variants are oncocytic lipid-rich carcinoma, glycogen-rich carcinoma, sebaceous carcinoma, tubular carcinoma, mucinous adenocarcinoma, and metaplastic carcinoma. Then other categories are of rare salivary gland type tumors and neuroendocrine neoplasms. So you should remember these categories of benign epithelial proliferation and precursors, then non-invasive lobular hyperplasia, DCIS, and invasive breast carcinoma, especially at the undergraduate level. Now next, so benign epithelial proliferation and precursor lesion includes these lesions. First is UDH, that is usual ductal proliferation. Then flat epithelial atypia, atypical ductal hyperplasia. So these lesions, they have variable risk of progressing to carcinoma breast. It's like now you see this table from the Robbins. So this is the first category. This is non-proliferative changes like mild hyperplasia, ductectasia, then apocrine metaplasia, and fibroadenoma without complex features. So these lesions, they have increased risk of breast carcinoma by 1 times as compared to those without these lesions. Then the second disease which we are discussing in this talk is proliferative disease without atypia. So florid or moderate hyperplasia, sclerosing adenosis, as I told earlier, then complex sclerosing lesion. So these lesions have 1.5 to 2 times increased risk of development of breast carcinoma. Then this proliferative disease with atypia, again ADH, and atypical lobular hyperplasia, ALH. So these have 4 to 5 times increased risk of progressing to breast CA. Then lastly, the entity which is having the maximum risk, that is carcinoma in situ. It can be DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, or lobular carcinoma in situ, LCIS. And see here, they have 8 to 10 times increased risk of development of CA breast. So these lesions are therefore important because they can progress to CA breast. Now important points about the benign epithelial lesions are that they usually do not cause symptoms, so they will not present generally clinically with a breast lump, but frequently they are detected on mammography in the form of calcification or density. So mostly a incidental finding they have. Then majority, they are not precursor of cancer, but they can progress to carcinoma breast, and these are the various risks. These lesions, they are classified according to the subsequent risk of cancer in either of the breast. And lastly, important point is that which is important for the patient, it is that risk reduction can be achieved by surgery or chemo prevention. The majority of women will not develop cancer. So many women choose surveillance instead of intervention. So women choose to close clinical and radiological follow-up rather than surgery, because majority of them will not progress to carcinoma breast, although they have increased risk. Now first we come to the usual ductal hyperplasia. So this is the first lesion of benign proliferative precursor lesion. So macroscopically or grossly there is no specific appearance of UDH, and intraductal proliferation, these are intraductal proliferation, though there is proliferation of the epithelial and myepithelial cells inside the duct. Now these cells, they are of variable nuclear size and shape, and these ducts, they are filled with these cells, and inside that duct there are variable sized lumina or spaces, and these spaces are often, they are slit like, and they are present at the periphery of the duct. Then they can be thin stretched bridges in between traversing the ducts. So risk of carcinoma, again, 1.1 to 1.5 times. So close follow up, that is clinical and radiological, is recommended. Now this is the image in which I'll try to explain this UDH. So on the left, this is the normal duct. This is a normal duct. I already told you that it is lined by epithelial and myepithelial cells. So these are epithelial cells, and these darkly stained cells, these are the myepithelial cells, these smaller and darkly stained ones, and this is the lumen of the duct. Now in the usual ductal hyperplasia, we can see that this whole duct, it is filled by the proliferation of the epithelial and as well as the myepithelial cells. You can see some myepithelial cells and epithelial cells which have filled this whole duct, and then there are certain spaces. These spaces are irregular, and they are also slit like at the periphery of the duct. So this is the microscopic picture of usual ductal hyperplasia, and surrounding this you can see this is the stroma of the breast. Next is atypical ductal hyperplasia. So macroscopically, again, it is usually not identifiable, and it can be detected on mammography, which can show calcification. On microscopy, now it is cytologically similar to the low-grade ductal carcinoma in situ. Here, like in UDH, the population was variably sized cells. Here, the cells are monotonous in appearance, and there is only partial involvement of the ducts, and necrosis is not seen as compared to DCIS. So cytologically the cells may appear like those of DCIS, but the involvement of duct is only partial, while in DCIS it is complete, and necrosis is a common feature of DCIS, while it is usually not seen in ADH. Now again, the bridges are rigid, which are seen traversing the ducts. These bridges are made up of the cells. Then micropapillary formations can be seen. So these micropapillae can be seen protruding into the duct lumina. Now again, risk is little bit more than that of UDH to progress to carcinoma breast. So 3 to 5 times risk is there. Now again, this is the picture which I'll try to explain it. So again, this is a duct. This hole is a duct which will be lined by the epithelial cells and myepithelial cells, and again there is a proliferation of these cells inside the duct. So these are showing these spaces. Now these spaces, they are more regular as compared to the spaces which were seen in usual ductal hyperplasia, and the cells at the periphery, they are columnar. You can see these are the cells are elongated. They have elongated nucleus perpendicular to the basement membrane, so they are columnar in configuration. In the periphery here also the spaces are slit like in UDH. Now cells will show a little bit of atypia, but they will not be as atypical as in ductal carcinoma in situ. Now the picture on the right is that of atypical lobular hyperplasia. So I told you that the lobule is composed of numerous acini. So in atypical lobular hyperplasia, these small and monomorphic cells which are discohesive. So discohesive is a feature of lobular tumors. So they will be seen filling the lobule only partially. So cells are similar to the cells of lobular carcinoma in situ, but the involvement of the lobule is less. So it will involve lesser number of acini as compared to the lobular carcinoma in situ. Now next important differentiating point, important concept of how to differentiate between the in situ and invasive carcinoma. So carcinoma in situ, means that the proliferation of the cancerous cells, they are confined to the ducts and lobules, while the basement membrane will be intact and myopithelial cells will be present. They may be diminished, but still they will be present. And since the cells, they are bounded by the basement membrane, so there is no metastasis. The lesion will not metastasize because it does not have any access to the lymphatic and vascular channels. While in invasive cancer, the tumor cells, they breach the basement membrane and they invade into the stroma. So this is an important differentiating point. Myopithelial cell layer is absent. So again, we can use immunohistochemical markers to demonstrate the absence of invasive carcinoma in demonstrate the absence of myopithelial cells in invasive carcinoma. Now, this tumor can metastasize because the basement membrane is breached. The tumor cells, they are invading the stroma and they have access to the vascular and lymphatic channels. So these are the important concepts to differentiate between in situ and invasive carcinomas. Now, in situ cancers, they have broadly two categories. One is ductal carcinoma in situ and lobular carcinoma in situ. So earlier it was said that ductal carcinoma in situ is confined to the ducts only, and this lobular is confined to the lobules only. But now this difference is not there. Both can involve both ducts and lobules, and this in situ carcinomas, they have the maximum risk of progressing to carcinoma breast, so 8 to 10 times. Now first we come to DCIS. So in DCIS there is clonal proliferation in the ducts and also the lobules. So it is no more only confined to the ducts, it can also involve the lobules, but important is that the type of cells which are proliferating. Now it can spread extensively in the ductal system. See, these are the various ducts which are showing the proliferation of these cells, and usually it is finding is incidental on mammography, where it can be seen in the form of linear microcalcification. So these are the linear microcalcifications, and there are different variants. Like first is comedo DCIS. So comedo DCIS, it has high grade nucleus, and important is there are areas of central necrosis and they can be associated calcification. Next is cribriform DCIS. So cribriform means rounded spaces like this. So it has cookie cutter like appearance. These are the rounded spaces. Numerous rounded spaces gives a cribriform appearance, and sometimes it can have calcified material. Next is micropapillary and papillary DCIS. In micropapillary DCIS, they will be bulbous protrusions and they will not have any fibrovascular core. Like these are the bulbous protrusion which are protruding into the lumen of this duct, but no fibrovascular core is there. While in papillary DCIS, there will be fibrovascular cores in the papillae which are seen in the ducts, and these cores, they lack myopithelial cell layer, but the myopithelial cell layer will be present in the periphery of the duct. So till the in situ lesions, in all these lesions UDH, ADH and DCIS, the myopithelial cell layer will be present. It can be diminished, but it will still be present, and this feature is absent in case of invasive carcinoma. Now another interesting entity is Paget's disease of nipple. Again, this is important question for Viva also. So this erythematous, there is erythematous lesion which is seen in the breast in the region of the nipple. So the lesion is red and eczematous with pruritus, that is itching, and with scaly crusting. So sometimes the clinician might confuse it. The patient might go to the skin department and might be misdiagnosed as eczema because the lesion is eczematous. So there are chances of misdiagnosis, and the thing which can be missed is that there is a lump in case of 50 to 60% of patients having the presentation of Paget's disease. So what happens in Paget's disease is that there is a focus of ductal carcinoma in situ in the breast, and these malignant ductal cells, they migrate under the basement membrane to the epidermis. So they reach the epidermis. So these are the Paget cells in the epidermis, but still the basement membrane is intact and there is no invasion into the stroma. But the important thing is that a palpable mass is present in 50 to 60% of women with Paget's disease, and they can have an associated invasive cancer. So in 50 to 60% cases, invasive cancer can be diagnosed in the breast, and such tumors, they are HER2 enriched. So the clinical importance is that if this kind of clinical presentation is there, so always the breast examination should be done, because they might have underlying breast lump which may show features of invasive carcinoma. So Paget's disease of nipple is a presentation of ductal carcinoma in situ in the skin. So for Paget's disease, generally mastectomy is done and it is curative in more than 95%, and conservative surgery can be done, but that has chances of recurrence. Next is lobular carcinoma in situ. So there is clonal proliferation of cells again within ducts and lobules. So there is no distinguishing feature that this will proliferate only in the lobules and duct DCIS will proliferate only in the ducts. So they both can proliferate in both ducts and lobules. But important point is that these cells are discohesive. These cells are rounded and these are discohesive. And the important point is in the lobular lesions there is mutation of the E-cadherin gene, CDH1. Because of these cells are discohesive. Now this lesion is bilateral in 20 to 40% of the cases. Again, this is important for the MCQs. So these are the ducts and lobules which will show proliferation of these small rounded cells which are discohesive or loosely cohesive. See in microscopy, this is a uniform population of cells which are round to oval and they have small nuclei. They will involve the ducts and lobules. There are no areas of necrosis, no calcification. You can notice that these features were seen in DCIS but not in LCIS. The E-cadherin is absent. This is most important. And sometimes mucin positive signet ring cells can also be seen. Now, important point to note is that less than 20% of the patient with these atypical lesions, they develop carcinoma. So clinical and radiological follow-up is essential in these cases. Now for treatment options are bilateral prophylactic mastectomy or tamoxifen can be given, or close clinical and mammographic follow-up can be done, and depends on the treating surgeon. So to summarize, this is the different lesions in the breast. So what I taught today were epithelial hyperplasia, in which there is proliferation of the epithelial and myepithelial cells within the ducts. Then if the cells, they become more and more atypical, they are distending the ducts and lobules, but still the basement membrane and basement membrane is intact, so that lesion is labeled as DCIS. But when the basement membrane is breached and myepithelial cell layer is lost, it becomes a invasive cancer. So there are few differentiating points, like normally normal breast has duct and acinine lined by outer myepithelial cells and inner luminal cell layer, while in UDH again there is proliferation of ductal and myepithelial cell layers. In ADH again both these cells are present, but myepithelial cell layer may be diminished. Similarly in situ carcinomas also, myepithelial cell layer will still be present, though it may be diminished. Basement membrane will be intact in all these four lesions, in the UDH, ADH, LCIS and DCIS. The important point about ADH is that the ducts, they are partially involved as compared to DCIS. In DCIS the ducts will be completely involved, and in DCIS the ducts and lobules can show calcification and areas of necrosis, while they will be absent in LCIS. LCIS, important point is that they lack a E-cadherin, because of which the cells are small, rounded and discohesive. Both LCIS and DCIS have the maximum increased risk for carcinoma breast, that is 8 to 10 times. So these are references. Thank you very much.